Welcome, everyone, to this introduction to the Milton Hershey School presented by Charlie Harcourt of the recruitment and admissions staff at the Hershey School. I'm going to turn it over to Charlie, and we'll have around half an hour of presentation from him, and we invite Q&A at any time. So, Charlie, please proceed.
All right. Thank you so much, Josiah. Thank you for Connecticut CASA for inviting me. I'm Charlie Harcourt. I live in New Hampshire with my family in Jaffrey, New Hampshire. I'm from New England. Lived in many different states across the region, but I live in New Hampshire now and work for Milton Hershey School, which is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So I'm the remote regional-based counselor for Milton Hershey School to serve all of the kids and agencies and schools across New England. And I'm going to talk a lot about the school, but just a little more on my role. Um, I'm basically the liaison and guide for all of the families and agencies who have kids who are applying for Milton Hershey School. So from their first contact where they just learn that there's a school funded by Chocolate for Kids in Need, all the way through when they're dropping their kids off and saying goodbye and meeting with the house parents. So I go all the way through. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll start with a cute little video, and then I'll get into the details. Right.
What if there was a place where every kid got a chance to be great? Where everything they do is meant to help us? There is a place, and there's no other place like it. It's my school, Milton Hershey School. Let me start from the beginning. Our founders were Milton Hershey, the famous chocolate maker, and his wife Catherine. They wanted to help children who didn't have much, to create a place that was safe, where nothing would hold kids back. The Hersheys believe learning shouldn't have a price, so we don't pay anything to go to school here. Everything we need is taken care of, even a place to live with other students our age, with caring house parents to watch over us. In our homes, we learn to accept and appreciate one another, because the things that make us different bring us together. Our classrooms, they have no walls. We learn by doing and exploring through programs that give us an early start on college and our careers. We get to grow our talents, play with passion, and we always celebrate our success. You see, we're more than a school. We're a community. We listen, serve, and find our voices. We change lives. I know, because this place changed mine. Milton Hershey once said that if he could provide for 100 kids, it would be worth it. But look at us now, more than a century of memories. 11,000 graduates and counting, and there's still more good to do. Because here, we have the chance to be great. I want to be great. And you? Well, you can be next.
All right. As you can see from that video, Milton Hershey School is a very unique place. As far as I know, it's the only school funded by Chocolate. It's one of the world's best private schools, and it's all funded thanks to the generosity of our founder, Milton Hershey. Milton Hershey started his life with very modest means. His father was a prospector, but was basically gone for most of his life. He was raised by a single mom right here in Dauphin Township in Hershey, near what's now Hershey, Pennsylvania. And he was raised on a small farm here. He tried business many times. He was an apprentice for a confectioner, and then he tried a couple of his own businesses. He went bankrupt several times, and finally hit it big with caramel, and then sold that caramel company to start the Hershey Chocolate Company. Milton Hershey and his wife Catherine never had any children. She was quite ill for much of her adult life, and but he loved her dearly. And they didn't have any kids, so there was no heir to the chocolate fortune. So it was Catherine Hershey's idea to start a school for boys in need back in 1909. And that school is still growing strong today. We now serve girls and boys from all over the country. And because of their generosity and the gift that he gave by endowing his whole chocolate fortune, we're able to cover all costs for all parts of our program. So there is no billing back to insurance, billing back to the family. There is no cost to families, schools, or agencies. We cover all of it with a charitable endowment. And when we say we cover all costs, it's the tuition and housing that you would expect from a boarding school, but it's also everything else. So when a kid enrolls, we give them 80 garments of clothing. They have a full clothing fitting with tailoring, and they get their initials sewn into the tags of their clothes. If they need glasses, they're going to get glasses. If they need braces, they're going to get braces. If they want to learn how to play guitar, they're going to get a guitar to practice on. Full comprehensive medical, dental, vision, and mental health care. So just a huge opportunity for the students that's fully funded by that endowment. Even haircuts, we got Spartan Styles on campus. And if at any point you can't hear me, or if there's questions in between or clarifications, just I can't see you right now, but feel free to speak up. So Milton Hershey School today, we have well over 2,000 students. I mentioned 39 states. We have all the New England states are well represented. We have about 100 students right now from New England. You can see the divisions. We start as young as elementary division, and then it kind of balloons up to senior division being over 1,000 students. Most of our students are from Pennsylvania. The mission of the school is first to serve students locally. But for students that are qualified and have need, we serve students anywhere they are in the country. But all roads lead to Hershey, Pennsylvania. So the boarding school, all of our students live and learn here in Hershey. Something we do that's very unique is our approach to home life. So we don't have dorms or residence halls. We have what we call student homes and house parents. The house parents are a married couple that are trained over 6 months to just care for the kids that are in that student home. So their full-time job is really just to take care of the 8 to 12 kids who are in their student home, to provide mentorship and guidance, and to create a home life that's nurturing and supportive and structured. So that when the students are here, I hear it from students a lot, they're never there to replace siblings, but they feel like they have, 8 sisters or 10 brothers in their student home. That's really the setup. They eat together, they play together, they do homework together, and it's really a nice, nurturing environment for kids while they're at school. And it's great to have the house parents be full-time. So when kids come home, their job is to get dinner on the table and to help with homework and talk through any issues the kids are having and really just help them thrive and have a really consistent home life. And as we know, all of you working in youth advocacy, uh, schools can do a lot, but a lot of the barriers for success for kids is the home life. Are they getting to sleep on time? Are their parents working 3 jobs? Do they have a good home environment? Is there drug issues? The student home just levels the playing field where our kids, they all have 3 meals a day, clothes on their back, great night's sleep. They really have what they need right there. And the student homes are built as student homes. So we operate about 180 of them here in Hershey for all of our students. So they're quite large. The students all have rooms with a roommate, and they have a big rec room. They have things that we would never have in our house, like a soundproof practice room for all those kids learning how to play tuba and all that. So it's a pretty cool setup and just designed intentionally for kids. So the student home goes all the way from if a student started in kindergarten all the way through 11th grade. It's all age appropriate. It's all different based on the grade. I've been in elementary student homes with girls where there's a whole, castle and pillow fort, and then there's high school boys student homes where there's a full workout gym, as part of the student home. So it's all age appropriate, different depending on what age they are. But 12th grade is completely different for all students. So in 12th grade, our students move on to apartment style living in transitional living. They get a budget from the school, and they learn financial management. So they have to pay their own light bill. They have to pay for their groceries, cook their own meals, get themselves up to class or to their internships. And at this point, they would also have their Pennsylvania driver's license. We do driver's training as well. So they have a lot of responsibility when they're in TL, but they're still in the Hershey bubble. So if they make mistakes or they fall behind on cleaning their apartment, we're going to talk them through that while they're still under our care while building independence. For religious programming for us, we are not specifically a religious school, so we don't have any denomination or religion that we are affiliated with. But we do have spiritual guidance, and it's loosely based on Christian values and teachings within the Bible. We do have a chapel service on Sundays, and we have religious programs. So we have our pastor that students can meet with if they want to talk through exploring faith or learning more about faith. He runs some groups that are optional for students. And we find that just spiritual education and exploring faith is an important part of home life. So this little quote up top here is directly from Milton Hershey's Deed of Trust, and it was clear that he wanted the religious training of our students to be cared for, but that there would be no favoritism shown to any specific creed or religion. So we really support all different faith backgrounds. The Milton Hershey Way, I just add this in because this is basically the philosophy behind our approach to discipline in home life. So with over 2,000 students, in student homes full of 12 boys, there is going to be a need for structure and discipline. But our approach is always, um, it's basically that we hold high expectations for our students, but that we do it in a caring and loving way. And that's the idea of warm demanders and the Milton Hershey way. Campus safety, we've got a beautiful campus here in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's almost 7,000 acres when you add all of the property together. So it's a pretty big open campus. Campus safety is on 24/7. We've got central monitoring on. We've got 300 outdoor cameras. And then also you see my badge. All of our buildings are badge access where you'd only have access to the places where you need to be. If you're a house parent in student home Inglewood, you only have access to student home Inglewood and other places you need to be on campus. If you're a student in student home Swatera, you only have access to that student home. So it really prevents students being, out of assignment and make sure everyone is where they're supposed to be. And it's a really easy visual. You see when campus security is walking around, they're checking to see, who has a badge. And if there's people that don't have a badge on campus, what are they doing? Are they just walking their dog or are they, causing any trouble? So campus security is great, but it's a safe place. If anyone's been to Hershey, Pennsylvania, it's just a beautiful, pretty safe town anyway. For us academics, these are kind of the pillars of our academic program. Small class sizes, typically around 12 students for most of the programs. Lots of hands-on learning. We want to make sure that students are really applying the skills that they learn in the classroom as much as possible, and we have the facilities for that. A lot of personalized tutoring, so it's not uncommon for basically every single student at Milton Hershey School to go to tutoring at some point. Um, Anytime you're falling behind in any class, they'd recommend tutoring, and we have full-time tutors, and it's built right into the schedule. So students would just stay after instead of the club or activity time, they would just go to tutoring. It's all built right into the schedule, and there's no stigma there. Career-focused education, I'll talk more about that later, but we have a huge component of our program is focused on preparing students for careers and whatever's next. And that starts as young as elementary. Like I've done presentations for elementary school talking about marketing and sales and missions and the work that we do. And I think we had like random household objects like these, they had to like sell me a little stuffy or something, and market it and make up taglines and make posters and just learning about different careers as young as elementary. And then as they get into high school, we're really preparing them with professional level skills, connections, internships, mentorship and on to college and everything. We also do a lot of advanced placement in college courses. We partner with 6 universities here, and students can achieve up to 20 credits. All right. Elementary division for us is pre-K through 4th grade. These are our youngest students. We do start, I know people ask the question, as young as pre-K, boarding on campus. They live in student homes For the elementary, the student homes are no more than 8 students. I find that the elementary students do really well. The program in elementary division is designed to be fun, to allow kids to be kids while they're building the academic foundations they need to be successful, like being able to read by second grade and being able to do basic math skills and problem solving. Um, Typically, elementary for me, it's with the New England kids because of the distance. I usually see grandparents raising grandkids that would choose Milton Hershey School for their little ones. But in certain circumstances, I just enrolled 2 little girls from a mom that was all the way up in near Lewiston, Maine. And she was facing homelessness, and it was really the best decision for her while she gets her feet on the ground to have her kids at Hershey. And she's thinking about moving down here. So they're doing really well. Elementary, so pretty small class sizes. Two clothing fittings for elementary. These kids grow pretty fast. We start some activities at elementary, but it's much more exposure. It's like art club and band club and farm club. So they're really just kind of doing exposure, not competitive, just having fun. Middle division for us is fifth through eighth. So we do bump fifth up to middle school. Something I think that really defines our middle school curriculum is that we have a social emotional learning component intertwined with both the academic and home life curriculum for middle school. So it's building skills and strategies for kids to navigate difficult relationships, to navigate change, and build like positive social skills while they are, while there's all the emotion and change and everything going on in the middle school ages. I think that really helps where within the academic and home life framework, we can point back to those social emotional learning skills that they're building. We also have something in middle school that we call compass points, which are lessons that are discussed within the classroom and student home. And there's different themes for each week. So I was just in a student home, and the compass point was about resilience and what it means to be resilient, and why resilience is a virtue that we should strive for. So just little things like that, where as students are kind of developing their own personalities and their own relationships in their life, we're giving them those strategies. Middle school also has a lot more free choice. We have classes in things like coding and robotics and art classes and music classes. So there'd be more choice within students' curriculum. And then they also get to travel through classes. So it's a level of independence at middle school. And we do add in competitive athletics at the middle school and a little more advanced programs for music and art. Senior division for us is really where a lot of the magic happens that helps students launch into bright futures. Senior division for us is 9 through 12. It's really set up like a college campus. They're walking across the quad to classes. We have specific areas for science classes and our business classes and our automotive, but it's all in the complex of senior division here. There's a whole building dedicated to art. There's a student center. So the vibe really is college-like, even though they're only in, ninth through 12th grade. Senior division, still small class sizes. And what I really want to hone in on is the career and technical areas a little more, because that's a huge part of this curriculum. So in senior division, every student will pick a career area that they'll explore classes in and pursue different pathways in. We have 10 different career areas right now: agriculture, automotive, business, computer tech, construction, culinary, education, engineering, health science, and law and public safety. So students in their freshman year will get to explore 4 different areas and take intro level classes in 4 different areas each quarter. So a different area each quarter. And then as they get into sophomore and junior year, they're really honing in on that area and taking classes in that specific career area. And then as they get into senior year, they're doing internships or co-ops or gaining certificate programs in that career area. So we have professional facilities for each one. You can see some down in the back corner. There's a welding building. We also see construction trades, our health science center. We have a whole room dedicated to law and public safety where there's a whole like crime scene investigation area. There's a full courtroom set up. So we want to make sure students are getting hands-on experience in all of these different areas. Um, and yeah, just one example on how the internships work. I had a student recently from Torrington, Connecticut, who was an automotive kid. She did her internship with the World of Outlaws dirt track racing team. So she was actually working with them at a couple of the races here in Pennsylvania on the pit crew. And then her co-op, which was built into her schedule, it's like an internship built into the schedule, that was at the Ford dealership right here in Hershey. So she got automotive side of like working on the pit crew and the dirt track racing and the side of working at the dealership. This is really just to show that despite having most of our students come from significant poverty, we outperform all Pennsylvania high schools in every subject. And if you look at the Pennsylvania economically disadvantaged, in a lot of these, we triple the scores of other schools that serve economically disadvantaged students. I mentioned internships. It's great to have the Hershey entities right here, Hershey Chocolate, Catherine Hershey Schools, which are cost-free daycares, Hershey Park, and Penn State, Milton Hershey Center, just as like places where students can do internships. It's a really great partnership. I mentioned that students get their driver's license. We have certified driver's instructors on staff, and then students also will learn to swim. So all students who are physically able have to do those two things as graduation requirements. For athletics, we are in the top division for Pennsylvania. We're in the Mid-Penn division. We offer a bunch of different competitive athletics and activities. There's a couple clubs there, but we have over 40 clubs at the high school and a whole bunch of the middle and elementary school as well. So when I talk to our current students, they're just like always involved in something. They could be doing the beekeeping club. There's a club for taking care of the goats. There's everything from like fun, silly stuff like Magic the Gathering to things that are, more serious and academically rigorous like Model UN. So there's tons of opportunities within the clubs and athletics. We also offer international travel for our upperclassmen. So international travel is not something that every student's going to get to do. It's really specific to students that have good grades and good behavior and show a desire to want to do that. But we take them on an all expenses paid trip. They're all kind of like education based with a travel component. So there's usually a theme. The students that went to France this year was focused on culinary. The students that went to Panama this year, it was focused more on biology and education there. We also had a group go to the Galapagos this year, which was really cool. One of my kids from Massachusetts, from Southbridge, went to the Galapagos. A little more on the farm. So we have a full working farm, about 1,000 acres. We have hydroponic greenhouses there where they're growing the herbs and tomatoes and strawberries. We have a trout hatchery, beekeeping, a lot of livestock. And students can engage in this as their pathway or just as a club, or some of the student homes have signed up to help take care of the animals too. So there's lots of different levels that the students can engage on. Visual performing arts for us, we have band, dance, art, choir, stage crew theater, really great theater productions, really great facilities. Like I mentioned, we have a full building devoted to art. So I'm jumping forward a little bit quickly through the opportunities just because I want to get to the application requirements. Students will get an instrument to practice on if they want to learn how to play any instrument. And we have lessons that are built into their schedule. A little more on athletics. I mentioned that we're in the top division for Pennsylvania. We're mostly playing against top like large private schools and public schools across Pennsylvania. We have sent students to D1 schools every year. We have some students who have graduated from us, gone on usually to Penn State or other D1 schools and gone on to professional athletics. Academics always come first for us. And you hear one of our graduates, Gary Gilliam, who played for the Seahawks, he always comes back and says that, that's something Milton Hershey really instilled in him is that the sports and everything that might become your livelihood, but academics your education still always come first, and that will guide you all the way through your life. Um, and great facilities for athletics too. We've got a full hockey rink. We've got the swimming area, wrestling gym, a triple gym for basketball. So if you know a student who's a talented athlete, we can definitely help them thrive. After Milton Hershey School, most of our students are going on to four-year colleges. Um, it's a little split. Like we definitely encourage two-year schools and right into the workforce for students that makes the most sense for, if that's the pathway for them to get their feet on the ground and get the best paying job that they can get at that point. We totally encourage it. It's a really good pathway, especially for students who have been in poverty in the past. But if students are eligible for four-year colleges, we encourage that as well. We have really rigorous college counseling, SAT prep. We actually provide college visits for students, so we'll travel to colleges across the region and actually get them on campus. And then the big one is that we help pay for college for our graduates. So we do up to $115,000 in college scholarship. This is earned through good grades, work ethic, contributions to the school, and behavior. So students, when they're in senior division, they're very aware of how much CES, continuing education scholarship, they're getting because it is associated with those factors. But it's designed that wherever students are headed, most likely they'll go debt-free. For our families, especially back in New England, it's good to know these breaks. We have 6 breaks during the year. Our students are headed back to their hometowns usually over breaks. We want to make sure there's as much connection as possible back with families back home, whoever the parents or guardians are, that they really stay connected and the kids come home quite a bit. You notice some of the breaks are a little longer, like our Thanksgiving, Easter, Christmas, are a little longer than a typical school, just so kids can have that time at home. And then parents can also come down and sign their kids out for 5 additional weekends if they want to. For my New England families, that usually means coming down, getting an Airbnb or something, or a lower cost hotel outside of Hershey and signing their kids out for a few days just to hang out down here. For all of those breaks, we provide a charter bus. The only one that matters for this group really is Hartford, Connecticut. So we do a bus right up to Hartford, and that's a charter bus of just Milton Hershey kids and a certified teacher or professional who will be on the bus with them. So families can feel good about sending them on the bus back home, and then they would pick up in Hartford. All right, so for our eligibility requirements, because we cover so much, we mostly serve students in poverty or near poverty. Right now, we use 300% of the federal poverty guide for eligibility for families. So if they make more than that, they would not be eligible for our program. Students have to enroll before they turn 16, so 4 to 15 at the time of enrollment. And then the bottom 3 points here, they're kind of vague on purpose because there is so much complexity within each kid and each situation and whether or not a student will be the best fit. But they can be boiled down to the idea of, can a student be successful in a student home with other kids and in a classroom with a regular classroom for the majority of the day and a rigorous academic program? So it doesn't mean students have to be an A student. It doesn't mean they have to have perfect behavior, but we want to see students that are motivated to learn, that they are, academically capable, and that they are free from significant behavior problems or aggressive behaviors. For us, we are not a treatment school. We are not a behavior intervention program. So if students have significant mental health needs or significant behavior problems, they wouldn't be eligible for Milton Hershey School. That being said, a lot of our students do come from trauma and poverty, so we understand there's going to be mental health need. We work really well with a lot of students who have things like general anxiety disorders, language learning disorders, ADHD, or past trauma, PTSD. We have, just at the high school alone, we have 14 clinical counselors, and then we have a whole health center here with additional clinical counselors and psychologists. So students, if they are, as long as they can meet that criteria of being successful in a student home with other kids and working well in the classroom, we want to make sure they can thrive even if they have dealt with a lot of difficulty, adversity in their life. I'm not going to go through the whole application process, but the basic idea is that the initial part of the process we call the recruitment process, where students are really exploring if Milton Hershey is right for them, and we're making sure that they meet our minimum eligibility requirements before they move forward and actually start to consider Milton Hershey School as their next school. We want to make sure they meet those requirements. So the big part of that is that families fill out the initial eligibility form online. And then if they meet the eligibility requirements, they would be invited down for a campus interview. We'll provide a hotel room for that. We can provide support for families to get down here because we're inviting them all the way down. But it's really important for them to see the school, to understand really what we're all about. They'll get to meet with house parents. They get to see a student home. And I tell families this part where you're at the eligibility form, you're just seeing if it's even an option. You're just like, give that kid a chance, giving them an opportunity. Let's see if it's even potential for our family. And then at campus interview, about 70% of our students who interview do move forward to acceptance and enrollment. So that's the time where families should start getting serious about like, all right, this might be your next school. Um, and that kind of covers it for me. I'm going to put this up here for just a minute. This has all my contact information. And if you hold your phone up to that QR code, it'll add my information in as well. All right, so I'll leave that up for a second, but we can open it to questions.
So my question, I guess, is are you able to work with children who are in the foster care system, or so if they're sort of already in a system, are they still able to attend the school?
Yes, so our legal framework, we work just like any other private boarding school. So we're not taking custody of kids. It's different than sometimes the children's homes that will take custody of kids who are in foster care or placement. Um, Typically, when I've worked with kids who are in foster care or in DCF custody, um, you need a very supportive caseworker who's going to support something that's out of state like this. During the process, the caseworker becomes the de facto sponsor or guardian. So they would be filling out the application and working on it. Um, Typically, what I've seen work best is if there's a point person or a ongoing adoption or even a ongoing reunification happening, and they're looking at Milton Hershey School as a way to make that all work. So let me give you a very specific example. Um, I was working with a family up in Vermont. Girl was removed from her household due to sexual abuse, and she was in DCF custody. They had already identified a foster family that was willing to adopt this girl. So she was living with that foster family, um, doing really well. They were willing to go through the adoption and court process. And during that time, the family and the caseworker decided that Milton Hershey School would be the best fit for that girl. So during that time, the caseworker applied for Milton Hershey School. She got in, she came down and is attending Milton Hershey School while that adoption process is ongoing. And now, as of this year, she's now adopted by that foster family. So it's possible, but you really need, I would say you need point people who are willing to go through the process, whether that's a kinship placement, foster family, or the caseworker. But you really need like point people who are willing to go through this process and support it. I hope that answers that question. It's definitely possible. But recent placements, like if they're just pulled out of the house, sometimes it's too complicated.
Yeah. Thank you. That does answer the question.
Do they have access to cars since you get them driver's license?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have loaner vehicles right here on campus. So once they have their official license, they can sign out a loaner vehicle. There's still always a buddy system. So even if a kid is in 12th grade, we have a rule of three. So it would have to be three students together sign out a car. So if they're getting in trouble, they're taking their buddies down too. But there's a rule of three, and they would sign out one of the loaner cars. All the loaner cars are, and the students all know this, they're all GPS tracked. They're capped at at like 70 miles an hour. So it's limited, but if they want to go, hang out at Hershey Park with their friends for the day and they're a 12th grader, they can grab a car. If they want to go to the grocery store, pick up what they need for the week, they can get a car. So we don't have students' personal cars on campus. That's too much of a liability for us. But we do have those loaner cars. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. This has been very helpful. I have a question.
Mhm.
How often do sibling groups come to campus, as opposed to just a single member of a family?
That's a great question. We have about 40% of our students have a sibling on campus. So it's very common. I've seen it's a funny difference between my area and my colleague who works down in Kentucky. She always talks about how they sign the whole crew up. Like the kids from the South, they'll bring all six siblings. I find that my New England families tend to send a test, a guinea pig. They'll send the oldest student first and then maybe sign up the younger ones the next year. Um, but it's totally possible. I mean, a lot of cases, uh, we have whole sibling groups come. I've had groups of 3 or 4 from the same family enroll all at the same time. Um, Something families need to be prepared for is that just because one kid gets in does not mean the other kids are going to be eligible. We give them priority in the process if they're a sibling, but our standards remain the same. A good example there, I had another kid, really needy situation, really great girl. She was just incredibly intelligent, and by some miracle, it didn't have major behavior issues. She'd been through a lot. Um, and her dad applied for her. She got in, and then they applied for her 2 younger brothers. Both of them were not eligible due to behavior, which caused I had to patch up some stuff with the family just because that, he's seeing this opportunity that his daughter's getting, but his boys can't get it. And so, I'm pretty good at navigating those difficult conversations, but it's good for a family as they're coming in, know that like they're not all going to get in. We've even had twins where one goes, one doesn't.
Once a
One
child, oh, sorry, go ahead. I already asked the question. Go ahead.
okay. Well, one question I have about the student homes is how long do they stay in a particular
Mm.
home? It sounded like they were somewhat age grouped, so they switch.
That's a great question. Ideally, each division they would be in the same student home. So in a perfect world, a kid would enroll in first grade, be in that student home through fourth. Then they would then they would move to a new student home in fifth through eighth, and then a new one for ninth through 11th. So if a student, what we call a lifer, someone who started in pre-K, kindergarten, or first grade, they would be in 3 different student homes. That's not always how the world works. Sometimes you get into a big argument with a roommate and decide to move student homes, or house parents get a new job or get promoted. So, but typically students are in the same student home for each division, and we try to maintain that continuity as much as possible. I hope that answers that one.
I was just going to ask, what's your retention once a
Mhm.
child is in?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So it's about 93% for the first year. That's where we were this year. So about 1 in 12 kids decide or parents decide it's not for them. And then from there, from second year on to graduation is about 90%. So about 10% more but it's really good if you were looking at colleges or any other boarding school. Our retention tends to be really good. I think it's part of it is because of the need and the benefit, but it's also that parents and families go through so much in the application process, and as they're considering it, especially my New England families tend to be pretty committed once they get here. It's not something that families just jump into lightly, sign them up, and see if it works. It's something they've been thinking about. Usually, by the time the kid enrolls, they've probably come to 2 of my dinner presentations. We've been working together for 6 months. The counselor's on board, the social worker's on board, grandma's visited. So it's kind of something they've really committed to. So our retention tends to be pretty good. But that being said, like parents steer the ship the whole way. So like we don't, if a parent calls and says they want their kid home, we'll get their kid home. So like we don't take any custody, guardianship, or anything. Parents still have complete legal rights. And for some families, like it just isn't the right fit. And then there's also I've had a lot of family circumstances change. I mean, like we're a resource here for families, and if uh if all of a sudden your family, I have a good example. This kid's still here, but which is great. But his mom they had gotten evicted from a home in Beverly, Massachusetts, just totally priced out of the housing market there. They moved to a camper up in Maine, and they were living year round in just a camper. So she enrolled her son. And then since then, she's gone back to school for nursing. She's got a home. Um, and he's still here. But like in some of those cases, sometimes parents get their feet on the ground, or especially, imagine you're struggling with drug addiction and you enroll your first grader. You get yourself sober, clean, and solid. You might want to bring that kid closer back to home. So that happens a lot. Um, Reminded me of another thing that I usually mention. If family's income changes while the kid is enrolled, they can stay. So we want families to be successful. If having their kids here means they start to make twice as much money because they take up a second job, that's great. It only gets complicated if they pull their kids out and want to re-enroll. Then we do reevaluate income.
What is the overall acceptance rate? I think you said 70% from the point of the interview
Yeah.
forward, but overall?
Overall, it's closer to 10%, so it's pretty selective. We get about 4,000 applications for about 300 to 400 spots every year. Um, Typically, students are discontinued early in that process, like before they interview, like I mentioned. And it's usually for basic eligibility, like either they have way more significant behavior concerns than we would handle, very significant mental health concerns, families don't make income, kids are too old. Those are the most typical reasons why. Um, Honestly, it's behavior. It's families look at a school like Milton Hershey School when they don't know how to handle their kids anymore, or when they haven't done well in the public school, and that's not who we are. So I wish there was more programs that were cost-free for kids who have had difficulty in public school, but like we're really for motivated, well-regulated kids from poverty. So that's what I see is just I often get really excited about applications, and then I look and it's like suspended for a knife or suspended for, so it's behavior that prevents most kids early on from getting in.
I think I noticed, Charlie, in the video there was a number of something like 11,000 graduates. Is there an active alumni network, that can support the current students and recent alums?
Yeah, I'll say two things there. So one is that we continue to support our students 6 years out from graduation directly. So we have college and career success counselors that go and actually visit our kids and continue working with them as whenever they're using that, especially whenever they're using that college scholarship money, that's still our money, so we're stewards of their success at that point. Beyond that, we have a wonderful alumni association. One of my students from Dover, New Hampshire, just got elected to the board of the Alumni Association, which is really exciting. But they're super active. I find that there's Milton Hershey alums all over the place. Even when I did exhibiting recently at Tunbridge Fair up in northern Vermont, and yeah, I was amazed to see there's alums out there, people who work at Dartmouth. There was an alum who, worked in Keene in finance, and like our alums tend to pop up all over the place, and they love to hire other Milton Hershey School alums. They have a really many of them almost like the Masons. They have a ring. It's modeled off of Milton Hershey's original ring. So you'll see that they'll point each other out, with the Milton Hershey ring. But I find it to be very active, much more active than my college alumni associations.
Any other questions for Charlie?
I was just going to anticipate some of the other, I was just thinking questions that I typically get. Um, So our student homes are single gender. That's good to know. If you have students who are trans or anything like that, we're a very supportive and encouraging environment, but it is pretty strict on biological gender for student homes. Um, the for my New England students, I've found that Milton Hershey School is a somewhat more conservative place than they might be used to. Central Pennsylvania is a little different than Connecticut in temperament. I mean, we're right almost in the heart of Amish country here. So it's good for students to know and just be ready. Like it's a very accepting campus. I haven't had any of my students have any issues if they're gay or trans or have pink hair or that's very accepting on campus. But it's good to know that like Central Pennsylvania is just different than Vermont or Connecticut. So I think it's good for families to know that. And also just like diversity. We have an extremely diverse student body. Um, we run our students it's about 30% African American, 30% Hispanic, and 30% white, and then 10% of everybody else. So it's and that within all those different demographics, we have students from they're all US students. We don't enroll international students, but they're from all kinds of different backgrounds. I mean, we have students from inner city Philadelphia, all the way from like my kids from Rangeley, Maine or Skowhegan, Maine. Like we have kids from Appalachia and Kentucky. We have students from Hawaii who were displaced due to the fires in Hawaii. Like there's going to be kids in your student home when a kid enrolls that are just from all over the place, all kinds of different ideas, all kinds of different backgrounds. So that I just like families to, be ready to be like accepting and be ready for it to feel different and have that be okay.
Do you allow like LGBTQ groups on campus and things like
Yeah,
that for
yeah. Yeah,
students?
we have a pride club at the high school. Yeah. And I find we do the LGB is pretty easy. As far as a boarding school, we always have lesbian and gay couples at prom and at events, and it's like it's pretty accepting with the Pride Club and everything. Um, Trans students, it's just trickier because it impacts home life. So yeah, yeah. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't apply. Like totally apply. I love to connect them with house parents. There's some, and that it's just good to know earlier on too, so that I can connect folks with like more progressive house parents. The evangelical, more like, seeing this as a calling Christian house parents might not be the right fit for a trans student. It might be I've got a house parent couple that's from Vermont that, have a blueberry farm in Vermont they run in the summer. So that might be the better fit. So, all right. Anything else?
Well, I think we can conclude, Charlie. Thank you very much. I found this inspiring, actually, to know that this resource is available to kids and families. I've heard about it for years, but I've never known very much about it until now. So we're really grateful, and we look forward to making it available on our YouTube channel. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from some of our volunteers and the kids and families they work with.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please share my contact information widely. I'm the New England guy, so any families you have in mind, I would be the one guiding them through. I welcome connections with families. I love, taking a family out to lunch and really talking it through with them. So that's my whole job is to be their guide. So don't be afraid to use me. And one other thing I would say is if you have a specific case in mind, um, I would be happy to talk just eligibility through with you. I've now seen probably 500 applications. So I could talk through specific cases with you if you want to, without using names or releases. If you want to just say, I have a kid who this is the situation. I love to do that, even before you broach a family with it. So happy to do that. Thank you so much for having me. It's a wonderful group. I love what you all do.
Thank you again, and thanks to all the advocates for tuning in. Take care.
All right, take care.